Hi, this is Amy T. Meyer. I'm here with Nate, and we are part of Helping the Brave. And we are excited to have a guest on. But all right, welcome everybody to this week's Helping the Brave. Like I said, my name is Amy T. Meyer. I'm super excited to introduce Mr. Hayzlett. Am I saying your name correct, sir?
It's good enough. It works.
All right. Well, as a T. Meyer, I understand. So traditionally speaking, we always ask, what made you pick your service? But I know that you are not a veteran yourself. However,
No.
I hear you help veterans, so I'm excited to hear about that. And this is a kind of a fun week. I'm in my in-laws' basement, actually, and I don't know if I can. They have a huge fish that they actually caught, which I think is
That's awesome.
cool.
That's awesome.
But anyhow, so tell us about you. Tell us about what you do.
Well, when you mentioned about the veterans, every single generation of my family from 1856 through to today has served in the military. My father amongst them. My father was a 3-time tour at Vietnam. He was spent his entire career at the 48th OMS Air Force. He was a senior master sergeant when he retired, and worked on B-52 bombers. So, and I've spent all my up until I became 18, I lived in an Air Force base up until that portion of my life. And now, of course, dedicated to working with a lot of vets, and of course, appreciate every vet that served.
Well, very good. So what do you do? I know that Ed Parcaut was actually the person who connected with you.
Sure.
So Nate is an Air Force veteran, which we try not to hold against him. And I'm Army.
Not everybody can keep up with us.
So
it's funny. So today, well, I listen. I bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career. I've been a Fortune 100 officer. I serve on corporate boards. I have my own television show on C-Suite TV. I have my own podcast on C-Suite Radio. I've been had TV shows on Bloomberg and had radio shows on CBS and done about everything in the business world. Today, I serve as the chief chairman and CEO of what's called the C-Suite Network, which oversees C-Suite TV, C-Suite Radio, C-Suite Book Club, and over 10,000 members that we have on the C-Suite Network, and over 350,000 opt-in members that we serve. And so that's what I do today, and then serve a capacity as leadership on, as I said, 12 or 14 boards. I can't keep track, but quite a few.
very good. Well, that is excellent. So what's been your experience with working with veterans?
Well, I've worked with vets all my life. Obviously, with my father being in the Air Force and serving, I've gotten to know quite a few vets. And today, for instance, I serve as vice chairman of what's called Big Daddy Unlimited, a large online retail gun company. I just got off the phone talking with a company called BioAccelerator, which is about to provide a lifetime stem cell service or treatment for a vet. So we were working on how we're going to do the contest and kick that off, because we'll probably have 20 or 30,000 people that will actually nominate veterans for that service. But I work with vets in a lot of capacities. And like, say, for instance, in my own company today, I got veterans who serve in my company, and on the companies and boards I serve, I've worked with veterans at Big Daddy. The entire team. I would suspect that Big Daddy, we've got about 190 employees, maybe a little over 200, and I would suspect about half of those are veterans in some capacity. And then next couple of weeks, I'll be at a place called the Epic Shoot, which is a big influencer shoot, an opportunity to try out new guns and new ammo and everything. And we have 150 influencers coming. We have well over 500 people coming, and I would say over half of the people that will be there will be vets as well.
Very cool. Very cool. So So if you do a lot in the small arms community, then groups, and I apologize for my naive nature or whatever, but like people like with Rainier Arms or Grey Ghost Precision, different companies like that. Are you familiar with them?
I'm familiar with all those companies. We also do work with Steyr Arms, which is out of Austria, Glock, F1, FK Bruno, optics companies, body armor. We do ordnance. We sell grenade launchers. We sell 40 millimeter ordnance. We sell about everything.
Very cool. Nate, any questions from you?
So many questions. Let's see, where do we start? So I'm assuming grenade launchers are selling mainly to military contractors, things like that, not necessarily
Primarily
to the private world.
Well, you can have private collectors that do it. Obviously, we have some branches of the military. You have some law enforcement groups that do it.
You go when you're out in the world. How do you connect what you do out in public with some of your nonprofit, your board work, and things like that?
So most of the work that we do, Big Daddy Unlimited, for instance, just to give you that perspective, is primarily a company that's online. It's an online retailer. That's how we got started. It's a company that's grown fast over the last couple of years. We do have some retail locations, but we're always holding events. We were just with the Nine Line Foundation, Nine Line Company. They do a lot with vets and T-shirts and sell a lot of that. And I was just at their event, fundraiser. I would suspect they probably raised a couple 100,000 or more. I hope I'm not slighting them in any way, shape, or form. But that company did really well, and of course we participated and gave, I think, about $20,000 worth of rifles and guns and optics and everything for people to bid on and donate. So we donated all that, and so we do it in a lot of different ways, Nate, in terms of how we do it. We have a lot of groups that we work with on the hiring side, a lot of groups that we work with just on like this new one, Bio Accelerator, the new stem cell company that's actually out of Medellin, Colombia, although they have an operation here. But a good deal of the stem cell stuff is done overseas, and we're just trying to get vets, as many vets as possible, to be able to have access to that kind of treatment. You can't always get here in the United States.
That's exciting. I think, and even like what Nate was asking about, like with the nonprofit partner, I'm a person, I always call myself a volunteeraholic, and I've coordinated many a golf tournament, many different things. And I think when you support small businesses, and I would even consider Nine Line still a semi-small business.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think it's a really powerful tool to create that type of community, because those gifts, those auction items, those donations, you really give into kind of the salt of our company or our country, people who are trying to do the best with what they have. And so I thank you for them.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's what you should do. You have an opportunity to do that, to help those people who best served our country. You do that. I used to work in the United States Congress, both in the House and Senate, worked the Armed Services Committee alongside Senator Sam Nunn for a while. So, there's a lot of people who understand what people do in this country and what they give for this country. And, I don't think we do enough. I remember the days when my father came back, when he came from Vietnam. As I said, he served 3 different tours. And, the respect that the vets get today is a lot different than it used to be back then. And, we actually see people stand up and take notice. They didn't do that back then. So it's nice that we're finally recognizing it's becoming part of our vernacular. I said, as I said, both of you, by the way, thank you for your service. I said that at the beginning, that we're thanking vets for their service. And, we didn't do that. We didn't do that 20 years ago. We didn't do that 30 years ago. And we sure as hell didn't do it 40 years ago. And, which is one of the bad things about, but one of the bad things about that was that's what happened. The good thing is that we're not doing it anymore.
Agreed. I think I think for myself, because I served almost 30 years ago, but my husband is currently serving. And seeing the differences is really is interesting, but it is, and it's a mixed bag. It's really great that everybody is more attuned to it, but I do feel still like that we have so much more appreciation to give to our Vietnam veterans and our Korean veterans, and taking different strides as far as they are concerned. And even if we don't feel the same way, definitely honoring those that came before.
Yep.
I
And
think it's
we're
huge.
coming up, even the World War II, there's a few of them left, but not many. And, probably in the next year or so, we'll see the last of the World War II vets. And, it's my uncles, my cousins, I just received the 19 the 45 that my uncle had in the Korean War. I just received that from one of my cousins. It's just amazing to sit there and think back. Now that you've got me thinking, my three uncles that served in the Marines or the Army, and my dad in the Air Force, my cousin in the Air Force, my other cousin in the Army. I mean, my nephew is in the Navy. My step nephew is in the Navy. It's like, I can think of all of these different people that serve that we're all touched. And I think that's one of the unique things here, and certainly in America, in the United States, is that, as a volunteer army and people who choose to serve, it's an amazing thing. And we're touched by so many families because of it. I was the chief marketing officer of Eastman Kodak, and I used to always I remember sending batteries over to the troops over in the Persian, at that time, during the Persian Gulf, the first war, or Arab Gulf War, whatever you want to call it, the 100-hour war. I remember sending batteries over to the troops then. And, I remember Oprah called me and Montel Williams called me and said, "Jeff, we need this." And I said, "You bet." And we sent them over, because they didn't have those kind of things. It's just a different world today than it was 30, 40 years ago.
Yep, I agree. I would agree with that in so many levels, because that's when I served, was 30 years ago, was during the first Gulf War. And my husband just got back from being overseas, and he dealt with a lot that is going on right now, I guess is probably the easiest way to say it. And it's different. It's different. Sometimes having more connection to your service member is not necessarily always less stressful.
No, yeah. Well, you think about, we've got a lot of people who have, who obviously take their life because of the stress of reintegrating back into society, into the families. It's not an easy thing. I remember when my father came back, the issues that we dealt with him, that was very tough. It's not an easy kind of thing for what those soldiers and the men and women that they do and how they serve and what they see, what they have to do. It's not an easy thing to do. And to assimilate back, I know I can count a number of people and families that have been touched and affected by that kind of activity. But now you're thinking, and I'm thinking of different things. I can remember sending my dad's cakes. We used to send him cakes. So we would, the APO, right? You would send them by mail, and we used to make cakes for him. And I remember we packed them in popcorn. And we put in a box, wrap it up, and then you put it in a box and you surround the cake like a chocolate cake or whatever it was that we would ship. And we would ship that stuff and we'd shove it with popcorn. I remember that was one of the, you just remember, that just popped in my head, which is just kind of crazy. But
that's funny. So when you would get care packages overseas, like from big companies, back when I served, what was always super funny is that the soap and like the M&Ms. And so I can't eat M&Ms to this day because all I remember is the taste of soap.
Yeah.
And, I just think of just some of those MREs and different things that are, we're super, as a country, when you serve alongside other countries' soldiers, they don't have the same even foodstuffs and things like that. Green eggs, that's a thing. That's a thing that I grew up in the Army, and all those little nuances that I don't think are necessarily the case anymore, but definitely are what I think of when, I read Green Eggs and Ham to my grandsons, or somebody's like, "Hey, do you want a bag of M&Ms?" No, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, well, my uncle Jack, who served in the, I think he was, yeah, I can't remember because my uncle Jack was much older than me, but obviously, but God, he had to serve in the, I assume he served in the Marines because of my Uncle Joe as well. And he used to always love SOS, or I'll say it, shit on a shingle. And so even when I was a kid, he would want to go out and have that. And I used to think that was the worst thing in the world to eat, but he used to love to eat that. And that was a big treat for him, was every once in a while he'd take us out for shit on a shingle. So
yeah, that's where I grew up. My dad was in the Marine Corps, and and he's a hunter, and so that's what my mom would make for him for when he would go out hunting and stuff like that, and that was the greatest thing ever. And and I think in the military, it's because you can't screw it up. It's so simple. You can't screw it up, and it doesn't.
There's no back then there was no expectation, so you couldn't screw it up. That's right. That's right.
And so, yeah, no, I absolutely am a big fan of SOS. But I haven't necessarily made it. I haven't made it in my adult life, I don't think, ever. But I will order it from a restaurant. So go figure.
There you go.
But anyhow, so I guess it comes back to like, so this podcast, like I said, we talk about like why we joined the service, what branch we joined, what we learned from the service, and then we try to share resources, because what we found is that there's silos of information. So I'm involved in the Association of United States Army. So we tell the Army story, and we have all these different resources, but Nate's Air Force, and he's not even involved in AFA or anything like that. And so he hears very few resources. And then, but somebody who's in maybe the American Legion hears their resources and different things like that. And so we found that there's these silos of information. And so we want this podcast to be a place where people can, share what they're doing, but then also reach out. And so if we know somebody who, even if we know somebody who knows somebody, but we can connect. We've had, things like support over stigma. We've had Luke's Wings. We've had all sorts of really crazy, awesome charities. We've had small businesses come in and talk about, what they've done. Bunker Labs, what they're doing for the veteran community. Steve Sims has been on the podcast in the beginning before Nate and I, and different things like that. And so I want to bring it back to what is your favorite veteran to work with, or who would be a good connection for you for any of the
listen, I work with all kinds of vets. It depends. It isn't about what's good for me. It's what's good for them, and how can we help, and what is the way we do it. I mean, I work with groups where we bring hunters out for hunting trips. There's numerous groups that I've supported in that regard. Most of the time I work with groups that are looking to help connect people and vets to companies to vets so that they can hire them. And I've known numerous companies that have done a great job doing that. Procter & Gamble, one being one of the best. I know they hire a great number of Navy pilots and people who are leaving the military. Typically mostly officers, because they're moving them into an executive grooming program that they do. But lots of other companies are looking and outreaching, military people. Big Daddy Unlimited, you want to come and find a great job and a great career, we'll talk to you, because we love vets, and because we love the discipline, we love the knowledge, we love the get it done attitude that they all have, and they're patriots, and that's a big part. For Big Daddy Unlimited, we are just so enthusiastic about the First and Second Amendment in this country, and as we like all amendments, but those are our two favorite ones that we typically work with and represent, because of our products and the way in which that we believe in standing up and speaking for freedom every single day. And then, of course, the Second Amendment, that wasn't a suggestion. was something that was put into the Constitution. So we tend to look for that. But we're always looking for people and vets that want to step up and do that.
So now that I finally got sound back, I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk for a minute. Let me ask you, Jeff. You hire a lot of vets, so, and I think a lot of times we focus on what do the military arm us with and give us to go and use in civilian life. And so I'm going to flip the question because you're on the other end. You're the civilian with the military guys coming to you. So what's one thing you could tell them maybe to either bring with them, and then maybe one thing that they can leave behind that makes that assimilation back into civilian life harder on them and into the corporate world harder?
Well, I don't think it's difficult for a lot of military people to move into the corporate world. Look, I lead the C-suite network in addition to being on the board for companies like Big Daddy and others. But by and large, we're looking for great people who have the ability to put tactics in place based upon a strategy. And most military people are following that, and they know how to follow orders, they know how to give orders, they know how to lead. And that's what most businesses are looking for. So if I were to talk to any vet or anyone that's in any military service whatsoever about showing up for a job, first of all, show up. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, because that half the game is just showing up. The other is to talk about some of the experience that they've had, how they handled logistics, how they handled difficult situations, how they handled people, all of those things are good things that we have to bring forth every single day. And then also you want to talk about values. What are the key values that you hold? Because we're always looking for great people, and anyone's looking for great people with values. The number one problem in every company is about talent. It's always about talent. I have a podcast that I've had hundreds and hundreds of episodes on C-Suite Network. And then prior to that on CBS. And my show, All Business, I interview executives of all kinds, all ilk, from all different kinds of companies, and mostly billion-dollar companies or greater. And the one thing that's common throughout that conversation is the talent problem. And that's being able to motivate, inspire, educate, and to get people engaged, to get companies engaged. I wrote a book called The Hero Factor, and in that book, I talk about key values that companies have and what creates hero companies. And today, 51% of most employees, 51% of most companies with employees don't know what their values are. They don't know what the purpose of the company is. And so, the key thing I would say, Nate, is for people to show up and talk about those values, talk about their leadership experience, talk about some of the tough stuff that they've gone through. We can see that what you did in the military applies to us in the business world.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, sorry, Nate, I do have a question. So one of the things that we've had some different people from transition services come in, speak on the podcast. And we noticed, Nate and Ed and I noticed there's a real difference between a officer or a senior officer, senior enlisted transitioning than there is from a junior enlisted transition story from the military, like far less available to them. So is there anything that, so the E4 that's getting out or the E5 that's getting out, is there advice you have for that service member that
sure.
isn't going to look as, so when you think about, so an E4 and E5 has their GI Bill, right? So they can absolutely go to school. But even once they get their bachelor's degree or whatever, they're still just the junior enlisted or sergeant. How do they look more appealing to the companies that you work with?
Well, I can remember let me just go back to my dad. I remember when he left the service, he went and worked for a contractor, and he had guys that were astronauts reporting into him, and the reason is because, at that level, as a senior master sergeant way back then, there was only 2 senior master sergeants. There weren't even chiefs on the base at that time. and there were only 2 colonels. That was it, that were running that Air Force, that particular Air Force base. And now it's the largest B-52, largest B-1, now soon to be largest B-2 bomber base in the country here in South Dakota. But I remember, hey, listen, and you both know this, there were lieutenants and captains that would come up and ask his permission before they would do things. So, there are great leaders at all ranks. There are great leaders at all levels inside of a business. And what we always want to look at is the leadership of that individual and the characteristics of that person, the values of that person, and the energy of that person. So those are the things you can do. And by the way, you don't have to go work for some big stuffy company either. You can go start your own business. You can go work at many of the other small businesses that are around there. And when I talk about small businesses under $100 million, well, there's well over 20 million of those just in North America alone. So there are lots of opportunities. You can go start a franchise. I mean, I will tell you right now, I know some of the greatest franchise executives in the world, and they love to have military people of all ilk come in and participate in the franchise business because they know it will be successful. So there's lots of different ways that you can go about this.
All right. So then I have one more question, Nate. I don't know if you have a question, but so, and I got to bring it back to the nonprofit world. One of the things when I talk, because I'm located right outside of Joint Base Lewis McChord, and so I do a lot with the Sergeant Audie Murphy Club, with a lot of different associations on post. And one of the things that I talk about is, while you're in, volunteer for the jobs that you want to have on the outside, because then you can try it. And when you volunteer, you meet incredible people, you get your network up, you get experiencing doing the thing that you want to do once you get out, right? And so that's always been kind of one of my shticks for when I speak in front of soldiers. So with that being the case, do you have any additional information or advice that I could be adding to that conversation with those kids?
When we're looking, I mean, when I look at somebody for a position, whether I'm in a Fortune 100 officer or, a smaller business or whatever, when I'm looking to hire someone, I always look, listen, if you've got something in the military, you're already got a checkbox above everybody else. That's first. But if you've also got volunteer experience, because that's one of the things I look for anyone, is what type of volunteer experience, what kind of, well-roundedness do you have besides just this one silo? So if you can add another silo to that, or another dimension to what you do and how you do it, absolutely, that's going to be a positive, because that shows that shows a lot about you and what you represent.
Very good. Thank you for that. Nate, do you have anything?
Yeah, I did. But you asked my question, kind of. You kind of wiggled around it and it came out. So I kind of got my question answered. But no, I mean, Jeff, really honestly, you've given us a ton of information. Definitely inspiring. I get it. I look back, and we were talking about it just a minute ago, and you were hitting up the nail on the head. You think about logistics on the inside and how that translates to logistics on the outside. It's the same. You're moving different cargo, you're moving different things, but it's the same. And same thing with, when you're looking at like mobility command, if you're looking at, putting the right people in the right places, and utilization management and things like that. I mean, it's all translate. It's just, how do I take my military resume and go, this is what I did. and I think you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it's just talking through it and being able to do that interview. So thank you.
Well, and many a times, Nate, as you well know, the logistics, managing the logistics in the military is life and death. And quite frankly, if you look in the United States or look around the world today during the pandemic, it could be just as much so in getting certain types of supplies, the vaccines, the masks, the PPE, and everything else that needed to be able to get apart, or just the embarrassments of not being able to have enough toilet paper. Let's put some military people in charge of that. I'll guarantee you somebody's ass would have got kicked and wiped if it had been a military person that would have been in charge of that.
The problem would be it would be all one ply and be really, really rough.
But nonetheless, it would have got done. I like that. That's good.
Truer words were never spoken.
There you
Right
go.
here.
Yeah. No.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, sir, for your time. And for those watching, if you like what you see, definitely follow us. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us, and stick with us. And I will end the broadcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.